Club, B. Scott from Hiram 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 Club. Do the Hiram Club, do the Hiram Club, do it. Do the Hiram Club, do the Hiram Club, do it. Do the Hiram Club, do the Hiram Club, do it. Do the Hiram Club, do the Hiram Club, do it. B. Scott from Hiram Club, coming down looking smart. Candy paint on the car, push the button just to start. Riding clean, looking fly. H-Town till he die. Swinging down West Town.
All right, this is the B Block Podcast. I am your host, Brandon Scott, and I appreciate you for being here. Doing this thing live, coming straight off of Monday Night Football. The Lions beat the Ravens, go on the road and beat the Ravens 38-30. And one of the cool things, I should say, really just the main cool thing about watching that game is watching two real football teams, two actual football teams go at it. Like, good for ESPN and ABC for actually having a real matchup as opposed to the week before. Y'all remember what was going on the week before? They had the Texans on Monday Night Football. And I'll give them credit. It was actually a competitive game. It wasn't a bad game. It wasn't a terrible game by any stretch. But it wasn't two competitive teams. It wasn't two serious teams at all like they had here. Even in defeat, the Ravens, a serious outfit. Even with their best player, Derrick Henry, giving up that costly fumble. And now they suddenly have a Derrick Henry fumbling problem. He has fumbled now in all three of their games. But even with that happening, they've got an actual team, an actual competitive team. And the Texans are going to see them in a couple of weeks ahead of their bye week. But that's not what we have in Houston. That's what we are here to talk about today. Obviously, we got the Texans falling to 0-3 after they lost to the Jacksonville Jaguars on the road in what was an awful, god-awful game. Like, if you're not invested in either the Texans or the Jaguars, either by work or as an actual fan of the team, there was no reason to watch this game, to follow this game. There was no reason. I don't think there was much reason for Red Zone to even go to this game until the end of it. It was that awful of a game. I actually picked the Texans to lose this game, so I wasn't surprised that they lost. I was surprised at how awful of a game it was and how poorly both of those teams played. We'll get into that in just a second. We're also going to talk about the Fred VanVleet injury because that's a big deal. Obviously, finding out that Fred VanVleet suffered a torn ACL is a major blow to the Houston Rockets and what they got going on. And we're going to talk about it a little bit because what's interesting is that I was literally just doing a podcast last week with Jackson Gatlin at the Locked On Rockets podcast about who's going to be. We did 2 episodes, and one of them hasn't come out yet. But the one that has was about who's going to be the 5th starter. Already assuming who the 4 starters were: Fred VanVleet, Amin Thompson, Alperen Sengun, and obviously Kevin Durant. Who's going to be the 5th guy? Would it be Jabari Smith Jr.? Would it be Tari Eason? Would it be Dorian Finney-Smith? And now we got to have a totally different conversation about what the Rockets look like, what their lineups look like, and just everything surrounding the team is kind of flipped on its head with Fred VanVleet's injury. So we'll talk about that. And of course, the Astros are cooked. They went out there and embarrassed the city, losing to the Mariners at home. Like, this is now 2 years in a row, and this didn't even get as far as the postseason with the Astros, where it felt like you're just watching the end, the outright end of an era. And I'm talking about last year in the postseason when they get swept by the Fighting AJ Hinch's Detroit Tigers. And then in this case, when they get swept by the Mariners in a must-have-it series at Dyken Park. So they're cooked. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But let's actually start with the obvious. And that's the Texans offense. Every time I talk to somebody that like forget just even a common listener, but like anybody that I talk to that cares about the Texans or anybody around town, they're like, man, what happened to them Texans, man? What happened to their offense? Why can't they score points? Why don't they score touchdowns? What happened to CJ Stroud? Why can't they protect him? How come even when they do protect him, he doesn't seem to be inclined to make plays the way that he used to? And there are a lot of answers to that question, or a lot of different ways to answer that question. But really, when it comes down to it, man, they have just like they have just failed miserably in putting this team together, or in putting the team together in a couple of ways. The offensive line, and I think overrating or overstating what coaching was going to do to fix their problems, and what these specific coaching moves were going to do to fix their problems. That's what's happened to the Texans offense, is that they have not properly addressed that offensive line, and they overly stated what mere coaching changes, a scheme change, a change in offensive coordinator and play caller, an offensive line coach change, and really just elevating the guy that had already been there, what that would actually do, how much that would actually impact, and how that could help the Texans overall, the Texans offense. And it's failed miserably. It's failed miserably. The Texans they're trotting out one of the worst offenses in the league. They do not have a score in the red zone. They did not score a touchdown at all in their first game. They scored one touchdown in this most recent game, and it was on a blown coverage, a throw in the ocean type of play on a double move to Nico Collins. And what was really frustrating, and I know a lot of people have talked about this, but it is hard not to point out here off top, is that what's really frustrating about it is that they lost to a team that was trying to give them the game. They lost a game that even a mediocre to bad team could have won, right? Like, think about it. The Nico Collins fumble. They are driving at that point, and it's one of their better drives of the game. Other than, like, I thought their best drive, since that one ended in a fumble, I thought their best drive was actually the field goal drive. And even that one, like the field goal drive earlier in the game, and even that one obviously ends in a field goal when it should have. Like, they got the ball at the 15, and they get to the red zone and they don't score. That's their thing. But the Nico Collins fumble, they got an opportunity to take the lead there, and they go ahead and win this game. You don't feel that much better about this team after having watched them, watching their inability to pass protect, watching their primitive and underwhelming route concepts and inability to get open, their lack of explosive plays and lack of seemingly explosive players. Like, outside of Nico Collins, they're in this game, they figured out a way to use their rookies a little bit more. Like, you saw a little bit more of Woody Marks, and of course Jalen Knowles been thrust into a role, or had been thrust into a role. But Christian Kirk was back. But like they lack weapons. They lack explosion. They lack weapons. They lack creativity. And the biggest thing in this game was both their inability to pass protect and their inability to figure out a like an answer for the fact that their rookie was not ready to go up against Josh Hines Allen. They couldn't figure it out. So that's what brought us here. That's what's happened to the Texans offense. They can't pass protect. They can't get open. When they do get open, they've got a a quarterback who is not nearly as consistent as he was when he started as a rookie. And now you're having serious questions about CJ Stroud and just the overall operation. It's a rough go. It's a rough go. So let's look at this game, man. Let's look at this game for a second. You got you go think about it here. You go punt, missed field goal, punt, field goal. And this 13 play, 71-yard drive was at that point what felt like your best drive. And you can't even cash in on a touchdown. Okay, so you go from there. Punt, 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 punt. Oh no, there's the interception in between there. The interception. Okay, so do we want to have the CJ Stroud conversation? Because that's the tough one about what's happened to the Texans offense. It was the case for a while that everything was failing CJ Stroud, which I think is still the case, but it goes far beyond that at this point. But CJ Stroud was going to be the player that could elevate, that could mask some things, right? Like look at the Kansas City Chiefs, for example. They got all sorts of issues. They're not nearly as talented as they used to be. But because they have Patrick Mahomes, because they have Andy Reid, it feels like they've got some answers to the test. It seems like they're going to be able to figure some things out, and at the end of the day, they're going to be competitive in one way or another. Now, that's not to say anybody thought that CJ Stroud was Patrick Mahomes, but it did feel like, based off of how he played in his rookie year, that he could be somewhat of a fixer, that you could get by without, let's say, the most talented offensive line. Or let's say if your weapons weren't all healthy at the same time, you still had a guy with a certain floor and was a ceiling raiser. And man, we're not seeing that. I saw a stat out there that said CJ Stroud hasn't thrown for 250 yards since week 11 of last season. He is turning the ball over with a lot more regularity. Now, the second pick and the last pick was more of a product of the system failing him, right? For whatever reason, Ariante Ursery, the rookie left tackle, still left on an island with Josh Hines-Allen when Josh Hines-Allen had shown from go from the beginning of the game that he was going to be too much for Ariante Ursery. Not to mention that was a predictable mismatch and or matchup nightmare for the Texans to begin with going into the game. Now, I'll say this about that. They should have given Ariante Ursery more help against Josh Hines-Allen in this game. And I don't think that there's any excuse for why they didn't. But at the same time, it's not like you can protect him for the entire game. It's not like you can afford to not have plays where he's one-on-one with the guy. And even in the case, this was pointed out a number of times on the broadcast, even in the case when the Texans would max protect, okay, even in the case where they had more blockers, when the Texans would max protect and the Jaguars would rush only 4, which is mostly what they did here. And they're blitzing more with Campanelli as their defensive coordinator. Not so much in this game. The plan was to rush 4, drop everybody else. And even when the Texans would max protect and have more blockers than the Jaguars had rushers, they still could not block it. They still could not hold up. there's that one sack where, I mean, there's a couple of them. I mean, you got the one where that's not even a sack, it's an incompletion where Josh Hines Allen just throws Ariante Ursary into CJ's lap, but trips over his feet and throws it in the dirt. That one didn't even count. But there's that one sack where Josh Hines Allen is beating Ariante Ursary on the outside, and then they're running a stunt on the inside, and I think it's Eric Armstead that's getting past Laken Tomlinson, who is its own issue on the offensive line. So you look at that entire left side, and it's a liability. Laken Tomlinson has not been good. And if you need any evidence of that beyond like the tape or having just like watched the games, see no other than them rotating him in and out with the rotation they got going now with Juice Scruggs out there. Juice Scruggs, who by the way, they wouldn't even play when their right guard went down, and he was supposed to be their backup right guard. They go out there moving dudes around left and right and left, outside to inside to avoid playing this dude. And the left guard is so bad that this is the guy that they got out there competing with him or in a platoon with him now. And if you just need one antidote, one example of why that is, there's the play right there where you got a guy getting beat inside, a guy getting beat outside, and there's nowhere for CJ. There's no chance for CJ Stroud. But then you got that interception. That interception that at one point you would have said was uncharacteristic of Stroud, and at this point you got to acknowledge is an issue. You got to acknowledge it's an issue. So I know a lot of people have said over the last 24 hours or so that the Texans made a mistake here in firing Bobby Slowick and hiring Nick Caley and thinking that that was going to be what fixed it. I'm now inclined to believe that. And I hate to play revisionist history because I understood the firing of Bobby Slowick. I also thought that the firing of Bobby Slowick went beyond just X's and O's and play calling per se. I thought that it was clear that there were some relationships, some important relationships that weren't going to be able to continue as situated. At least that's just the way it seemed. And so, on top of whatever the actual football stuff is, right? Like fitting the scheme to the players and all of that type of stuff. I hate to play revisionist history on this, but the idea of putting the CJ Stroud's third season in the hands of a first-year play caller and just getting some kind of committee of offensive linemen with that first-year play caller and just simply elevating the assistant offensive line coach was a risky strategy to begin with. And it is not paying off early. The season is not over, but it does look like that was a mistake. Like that was just straight up the wrong call. Straight up the wrong call. And I say that because there's just nothing inspiring about what we're watching. Nothing inspiring about what we're watching. Like we talk about the 0-3 teams. And what does it mean, right? The fact that you haven't seen a lot of 0-3 teams, it's not often that 0-3 teams go to the playoffs and all of this kind of stuff. The 2018 Houston Texans are one of the teams, if not the last team, to do it. What do they look like? And mind you, all three of these games have been one-score games. Ask yourself this about the Texans. Do they look more like the team that can overcome an 0-3 start? Like when you talk about teams that have overcome it, do they look like that kind of team? Right? When you consider that it's been one score games and that they were in it against two of the teams that were really good, and Jacksonville's not very good, but they played close against a Rams team that we think is good, against a Bucks team that we think is good, have only lost by one score and are 0-3. Does that make you feel like they're a team that, based off of watching them, that they're a team that can overcome this 0-3 deficit or this 0-3 start to the season? Or does the way that they've played and what you've watched from them show you more so of why they're a 0-3 team? Like, is it more indicative of them being an 0-3 team, right? Like, are they the outlier, or are they like more so an example of why 0-3 teams don't go to the playoffs? Because teams that start off 0-3 are typically bad. They're not very good. And that's what the Texans are right now. They got a defense that is scrappy and is holding its own. I wouldn't say quite elite. They got some holes, but very good. A very good defense. But an offense that is just inept. And there's no way to watch Monday Night Football, watch what Dan Campbell's Lions are doing, watch what John Harbaugh's Baltimore Ravens are doing, and feel like, hey, this is a team that can compete with that. And they competed with the Lions last year, blew it. Saw what happened with them against the Ravens. Do you think that this team that you've watched over these last few games are anywhere close to even that team from last year that almost and should have beat the Lions and scored all of 2 points against the Ravens at home in front of Beyonce on Christmas on Netflix? This team don't even look as good as that team. So that is something that I would say surprises me about this, because look, I picked them to lose this game. Houston Chronicle, I picked them to lose 20-17. I didn't pick it to look like this. I picked them to win 10 games and duplicate what they've done over the last couple of seasons. 10 games, give or take, win the division, host a playoff game because they won the division, not because they're actually one of the best, 4 teams or whatever it is in the AFC, but because they won the division, host that playoff game, maybe even win that playoff game. But once they go on the road for that divisional round, it's the Ravens, it's the Chiefs, could be Buffalo. It's somebody that's for real. I thought that this was my complaint about the Texans, was that they were more so stagnant, that they hadn't really done anything to elevate the team, that they hadn't really done anything that made you say, hey, they've taken that step from 10-win division winner to actual legit AFC contender. I didn't see from the moves. I could see how the moves could work just to where they could keep their head above water and stay where they were. I didn't see how those moves were going to translate into elevating them into being something that they have not been yet. What I didn't think was that it would blow up in their faces like this, that they would go in the opposite direction, that they would instead become one of the worst offenses in football, that we would sit here and have legitimate questions about CJ Stroud, the franchise quarterback, who I feel pretty sure still that they're going to pay after the end of the season, but who the hell knows now if things go left the way it looks like they're going. If you just play that thing out exercise that 5th-year option and just kind of see how things go next year. And like I was saying this as the Colts were baptizing the Titans on Sunday, that I did not have on my bingo card, considering that Daniel Jones would supplant not even Trevor Lawrence, but not even CJ Stroud, but Trevor Lawrence and CJ Stroud. Like, I was certain that Daniel Jones would be the 3rd best quarterback in the division. He's the best quarterback in the division by a mile. And right now, the rest of them aren't even really worth speaking of or speaking about. Who had that? I did not see that coming. So that is the shock of the whole 0-3 thing. Not just simply that you're 0-3, but that you're 0-3 with a certain level of hopelessness, a certain amount of hopelessness, that you're 0-3. You're 0-3 like with good reason. Like you deserve to be 0-3. Like you lost to the Jaguars after they tried to give you the game on multiple occasions. All of the drops, the missed field goal. I mean, they turned the ball over. Penalties, right? I think they had even more penalties than you did. Like every excuse, every reason to say, here's the game. You can have it. It's yours. You always win here anyway. Here it is. And even a bad team, even a mediocre to bad team, could have done that. Could have won that game. We saw the Browns beat the Packers. Browns ain't no good team. Packers probably are. The Browns win that game. So yeah, you're not the 0-3 teams. However many 0-3 teams have made the playoffs. Last one to do it was so and so. You're not one of those teams. You don't look like one of those teams. What happened to the Texans offense? Lack of creativity, inability to pass protect, lack of explosion, can't get open, quarterback who's regressing. Offensive coordinator who might be overwhelmed. And why wouldn't he be? The one I'm not giving Nick Haley a pass. I'm not giving the Nick Caserio, D'Amico Ryan, CJ Stroud trio a pass. But I will say, like on Nick Haley, that the one thing that I feel bad about was the point that I made earlier about how they can't even protect a 4-man rush when they're in max protection. There is no scheme, play call, design, or concept that can make up for not being able to hold up max protection against a 4-man rush. There are no plays that exist like that, because that just comes down to a matter of math. There's nothing they can do about that. Maybe run the ball, but there's no answer for not being able to. There's no path to success offensively if you can't protect a 4-man rush. You just can't. I mean, there's nowhere to go from there. Okay, let's go to this Fred VanVleet injury. This is tough, man. And I see Texans tailgate talk was in here earlier. That's Big Sarge. Y'all check out Big Sarge, man, because he's on the scene, whether it's the Texans or the Rockets, who we're gonna talk about now. But y'all check him out. Texans tailgate talk. and doing a lot of real cool stuff in the digital space. My guy, Big Sarge. But this Fred VanVleet injury is major because they don't really have, like, they've got a lot of players with overlap, with positional overlap, skill overlap, all that kind of stuff. Like, they got some unique players, but a lot of them do have some overlap. Like, you can sub them in and out for each other. Fred VanVleet is not the Rockets' best player. I wouldn't even say he's their. Uh, yeah, no, I wouldn't even say he's their. He might be. He's probably their fourth best player, but he is their. Okay, and Kevin Durant's on the team now, so that makes this point a little bit more ridiculous to make. But just kind of stay with me here. He is their most difficult player to replicate because they just don't have another natural point guard, and certainly not one with Fred VanVleet's experience and sort of just his hold on the team, like as a leader. Like they just don't have anybody else like that. Kevin Durant obviously is their most special player and is one of the more unique basketball players and athletes that we've ever seen in our lifetime. And so certainly they don't have anybody that can replicate it, but they do have like tall guys that can shoot. Right? They have that. They have Amin Thompson is an athletic freak. I don't think they have anybody on the team that can replicate his athleticism, but they do have like guys who can play defense, who can guard elite wing players, and Dorian Finney-Smith and Tari Eason, just to name a couple. So beyond Amin Thompson, they don't have anybody like Fred VanVleet that can come in and run the offense and kind of be, as Alperen Sengun has referred to it in the past, be the brain of the team. And so I'm real worried and real bummed out for the Rockets with this news because I don't really know what they do. Like the obvious point to make here, and I'll make it, is that you're gonna lean a lot more and hope to get a lot more from Reed Shepherd. The growth from year 1 to year 2, you're gonna hope that and need for it to be a lot more than maybe you were thinking or expecting going into the season when you thought Fred VanVleet was going to be there. But Reed Shepherd's going to have to step up. He might be the closest thing to it, and he's a unique player in his own right on the team in terms of somebody that that's a sniper that can shoot the way that he does, that can put the ball in the basket the way that he does. That's been one of the knocks on it. Now they've added Kevin Durant, they've added Dorian Finney-Smith. And so they do have more shooting on the team. But prior to that, Reed Shepherd, like last year, was one of the few guys that you could view as a shooter on the team. And so he brings that to the table. Could he be the full-time point guard? Is he ready to fill the shoes of Fred VanVleet? Man, I don't think so. I doubt it. I doubt it seriously. But that's where you are now. Now, could they make some moves? Is there something else out there for him? I don't I don't see it, not to the degree of what they need. Like more there will be more Aaron Holiday. There will be more asked on, or I should say asked of, Amin Thompson as a playmaker. And Reed Shepherd's got to step up. I don't know what any of that exactly looks like. Just got to be real with you. I don't know what any of that exactly looks like and to what degree everybody that I just mentioned is up for that. And so the answer to that is going to be a huge factor in what the Rockets end up doing. Like I think a lot of us were going into this season thinking, man, this is certainly a team that should be competing to go to the Western Conference Finals. Don't see why not. Don't see why this couldn't be a Western Conference finalist. Don't see why this couldn't be a team that goes to the NBA Finals. Just depending on how the ball bounced, depending on what it looked like, what the rest of the NBA landscape looked like. And now the Fred VanVleet injury definitely puts that in question. So This is huge. I think it's huge for the Rockets from the standpoint of losing one of the more important players. I think it's huge for Reed Shepard as somebody who has an opportunity to step up and show that he's ready to fill that void and play that role. And again, I'm skeptical on if that's actually the case. But wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be dope if the Reed Shepard thing, the number 3 overall pick, if that just kind of just works out and he actually goes out there and looks like a number 3 overall pick or something close to it, they could use that. So, spoiler alert, if you hadn't watched the Locked On Rockets podcast that I did with Jackson Gallen, I did say that Dorian Finney-Smith was the person I was picking to be the 5th starter, and not because I think that Dorian Finney-Smith is better than Jabari Smith Jr., for example, but I like the fit, and I think Jabari can go with any lineup that they come up with, so he can come off the bench. And Dorian Finney-Smith fits perfectly into the role of, let's say, a Dylan Brooks. If Kevin Durant is the Jalen Green replacement, Dorian Finney-Smith makes sense as a Dylan Brooks replacement. Maybe even a little more so, I'd say, than Tari Eason, who I just love off the bench. But now we got to consider, if Dorian Finney-Smith is my 5th starter, but I've lost one, that means I need another 5th starter. I need a new 5th starter. And who's that going to be? It's a men. It's Kevin Durant. I think it's Dorian Finney-Smith and Alperen Sengun. Who is it after that? I know I just said Jabari makes sense in any lineup. I'm not sure if that's the one. I don't like Tari not coming off the bench. I don't know if that's the one. Reed Shepard, is he ready? Aaron Holiday, do you love that in larger doses? I like Aaron Holiday a lot. They got some serious questions to answer over there. They got some serious things to confront over there at Toyota. All right, so the last thing before we get out of here is going to be pretty quick on these Astros. And I just want to point out that this is an offense that has been anemic for a good bit of the season. Like they've been scrappy enough to kind of stay competitive, but it has not been a good offense, and more specifically, has not been an opportunistic offense. The Astros, like, they don't get runners on often enough, and when they do, they certainly don't do enough with it. So, only recently have they felt like they've gone back to being like the patient at bat, make a pitcher work type of Astros. Like they were like that in that Rangers series before they got swept. You know, when they swept the Rangers before they got swept by the Mariners, it was like, oh, the old Astros are back. That's not what they've been this year. One of the, I would say, least competitive at bat type of teams that you'll find, and just a sad way to see it go. A sad way to see the dynasty, what I'll just say, officially end the reign. I think it was Sean Pendergast on Sports Radio 610 on Monday morning saying that the reign of dominance is officially over. Couldn't agree more. And I think we really knew that and started to see that going back to 2023 when they lost to the Rangers in the ALCS. And that's when it sort of started, of like just realizing, man, they are not, shout out to them for making it to the ALCS, but they are not inevitable the way that they used to be. I think you see how last year ends. They barely make it. And when they do make it, they are promptly escorted out. in their own ballpark by their former manager, by a team that did not seem like that Tigers team did not seem like the one that started off this season. I know they fell off and they've been up and down and everything, but they look legit this year. They look like more of an up and comer that was a year away last year when they did what they did to the Astros. But the Astros were probably a year or two away in the other direction, a year or two past their time. And now we see it, the hitting, Carlos Correa's back and welcome back, but hasn't really played like a star. And to be fair, wasn't playing like one in Minnesota. I think that's part of the reason why he was available, for the price that they pay, for the amount of money that he makes. And if you're Minnesota and you're not really winning and competitive, what's the point of having a player that expensive on the team? And lo and behold, the Astros are not that far off from being that type of team. They're basically kind of the same thing. Jose Altuve, like, the conundrum. You got a conundrum because he's a defensive liability, but you gotta play him somewhere because Jordan's your DH. Oh yeah, that's a problem too. They got all kind of issues. Framber Valdez is supposed to be their ace. Thank God for Hunter Brown for stepping up and actually being that, because Framber Valdez ended up imploding toward the end of the year. Who knows how much money he cost himself? That's not anything for the Astros to concern themselves with, because they will not be bringing him back. It's rough, man. It's rough, and now they got to figure out. I mentioned Altuve and Jordan. Like, they got Correa now. Can leave him at third. Isaac Paredes, when he's healthy, I think can play second for them. Solves your second base issue. But now you got this Jordan Altuve thing where both of them are defensive liabilities, but there's only one DH spot, so one of them's got to play. And so you're alternating these guys in left field when neither of them is an ideal option in left field. And then even as your DH, Altuve not quite as consistent, and then Jordan is ideally your DH, but you can't rely on this dude to stay healthy. So this will be a fascinating offseason, and really just to kind of I'm already look at me already going to the offseason as if the Astros are eliminated and like there won't be a postseason. That's where I'm at, y'all, just to be clear about it. Y'all see what it say down there. The Astros are cooked. I don't care if they get eliminated before or during the postseason. They not going nowhere. And so I'm looking toward what is the direction going forward. Are they going to try to pretend like this is still like a competitive team, a competitive outfit? They've invested a lot of money into a closer, right? A closer who got hurt at the end of the year and still has a couple of years, has 3 years left, I believe. Josh Hader has 3 years left on a 5-year, $95 million deal. If I'm remember doing that off of memory, but you pay damn near $100 million for a closer, and Lord knows how many games he'll be closing going forward, or if that's going to even be close to the best way to spend your money. So they got questions, a lot of questions to answer, but one thing I do know about them is that they are cooked. The Astros are cooked. Man, what a rough 24 hours to be a Houston sports fan, to realize that, you realize that your baseball team, and even before the Texans went down to the Jaguars, you had seen the look, the Astros had already lost on Friday and Saturday. They had already lost that series. And so you get the Texans losing. The Astros go ahead and just get swept. Don't really score no runs for the most part in that series. And that's become a thing where they'll just get shut out or not score no runs because they don't have no kind of offense. And then this news about Fred VanVleet, like this is I feel like this is gonna be a weekend into a reaction Monday, if you will, that I'll never forget as a Houston sports fan. When I had all of these realizations about where my teams actually stood, the Texans not even being as good as they were the year before, which I thought was bare minimum. The Astros not even winning the AL West, which I thought was something they could do in their sleep. And then this odd Fred VanVleet injury that is probably going to keep him out for the season. And it happened to arguably their most indispensable player. Their player that's hardest to replicate. Janae says that the Dodgers bandwagon is always open. We can talk about that perhaps off the air, but there will be no ruining of the brand going with the Dodgers. Nah, man, look, she know that's Janae talking about the Dodgers. She a Dodgers fan. She know that the Dodgers be on some bull too. The Dodgers, I understand they won the World Series in dramatic fashion last year, but they'll break your heart too. They'll make you mad too, and you know that. I don't have to tell you. You've been dealing with Michael, the ebbs and flows of the Michael Conforto experience. You see Tyler, how's Tyler Glass? Is Tyler Glass now? Somebody tell me. I don't know. Is Tyler Glass now good? She might know. They're out there trying to pitch Ohtani, knowing damn well he don't need to be doing that no more. Dave Roberts, I guess they like Dave Roberts now. They'll give you a headache too. But anyway, look, I appreciate everybody that jumped in on the live stream. This is going to be up in audio form. You can also check this out on the B Block Podcast YouTube page under the live section. But of course, if you're not able to watch, you can always catch us wherever it is you find your podcast. And if you do that, go ahead and give us 5 stars, leave a review. Also, tell somebody about the podcast, man, whether that's the YouTube page or the audio platform. You can get us wherever it is that you are. So make sure that you're doing that. Later in the week, man, I'm supposed to have this at the end, man. I should do a better job of like knowing when I'm gonna be on the air, but I do like to tell y'all, man, I'm gonna be on the air at some point. Is it Thursday? Is it Friday? I'm gonna be on the drive one. I think it's Friday. I think I'm on the drive Friday with Ron, and it's one of those football Fridays, so we'll be out. We'll be out on location. Make sure y'all check out Sports Radio 610 social media pages so you can find out where we're gonna be at. But check me out, man, and ahead of that, I'll be on with them on Wednesday doing my weekly hit, the Texans Report. Man, we'll see. Like, there's no more. I don't think there's any more media availability between now and then. So we'll see where that conversation goes. But there is a lot to break down, a lot to talk about. I appreciate y'all for being here on the podcast. Make sure y'all check us out everywhere else we are on the radio and in the digital forms. And until next time, y'all be good.
From Hiram Clark, B. Scott from Hiram Clark to the Hiram Clark.